Good. All right, well, let's open the meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, we have a couple of things to do in open public hearing? District safety plan and the code of conduct. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Go ahead.
Okay. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. All right.
So our district safety plan is annually reviewed publicly. This district plan is an overview of safety and emergency response throughout the district. It does not have any of the confidential information. So this is released to the public for review, and this is really more speaking to how we prepare, how we drill, and speaks sort of in a broad sense to some of the reactive responses from the district. One of the things this year that was required was that we develop and add to our safety plan a remote learning section. So you might remember that last year, one of the things we had to include was continuity of operations. We now this year had to include our remote learning plan, so that is included for your review. Other than that, it's really just minor updates every year. The content otherwise has not changed.
Okay. Questions? Yeah.
I just have one comment. Not to be egotistical, but I'm on the safety committee. So I see Chris Rosenberg on there, but I think I'm missing myself.
I can certainly add you. It's probably because these updates started before the reorg meeting, so I apologize for that.
That's okay. I was on last year too, but I guess I missed it last year.
Just to be safe, we'll put you on every committee.
No.
And that way,
That's what I get.
that's, all right, anything else? All right, how about the code of conduct?
So the code of conduct actually, we did a lot of work on that this year. We worked with Julie Shaw from the law office to review much of the language. We looked at different parts of the code of conduct that had sort of been problematic or unclear, and we looked to create lots of clarification throughout. We also reviewed the dress code to make it more gender neutral and to just speak specifically to the requirements for student dress. And then what we also did was the corresponding 5300E, which is where we list the anticipated consequences of poor behavior. We went through and actually aligned it to the document. So before it was all out of order, it was very hard to follow. So we actually tried to make more continuity between the two documents. There's nothing earth-shatteringly new in here. A lot of it was just sort of like realigned kind of thing. And everything within has been approved by Julie.
Questions? Comments?
I have a question. On page 14, it says students cannot wear, and then the fourth bullet down says items including but not limited to makeup, etc. And then at the end it says obscuring the face. Is it just not enough makeup to obscure the face, or just not makeup, period?
Right, it's face paint. So the whole purpose of any of this in terms of hoods or head coverings, other than for religious purposes, would be if we are not able to identify a person in the building. So for like Halloween, they can't wear such theatrical, like regular makeup is fine, but like theatrical makeup that we don't know.
Okay, just want to make sure, because I know students. How would you something?
Yeah.
And how do,
Did we just go up one? Okay.
anyone else? Might have one or two. So I can tell you put a lot of work into this, and it is much more clear. On the website, on our homepage, there's this document and then the ranges of consequences after. And I don't see that. I mean, I know it's on the website, but when we add this into policy, will that table be in there?
Yeah, that's actually not changing other than the order of it.
Right.
So we just reordered it to match this as opposed to before it was not in order.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so we're not changing the content of 5300E. We're just reviewing the code of conduct.
Right. Okay. And I know last year I had asked about a statement of training, and then I do see that in there. I think on it's page 42. That one at the end of page 42. The board will sponsor an in-service education program for all district staff members. So I really do like that it's in there. When I look at the safety plan, it's very, very specific in terms of, by a certain date and annually, and so I'm wondering why we wouldn't the conduct.
So
in
the
essence,
safety plan, that comes from the law. That those dates come from the law.
okay,
We're legally required to review that by those dates. We don't have a legal requirement to review this, but annually. And so that happens in the beginning of the school year. We've never had a date, but it doesn't mean we can't have a date.
yeah. Right, other than it's not required by law. It's my opinion that it would be best practice to have something, whether it's annually or. Maybe you guys, you can think about that as a.
So it is,
change
okay, so it is required to be reviewed.
by the board, yes, I mean, in terms of.
No, also with staff and
With,
yes. And a plain language copy to families.
okay,
So we have all of that ready to go as well.
okay.
Are you
so-
saying you don't see a date when we'll do it, or?
No, I don't see that it's. It just doesn't say annually. The board will, if that's happening annually, then why not put that in there? It says the board will sponsor an in-service education program for all district staff to ensure the effective implementation of the code of conduct and other trainings as needed. So it's the as needed. To me, is a bit reactive. Well, as needed when someone feels like they need training or when something.
But on the other side, if we say annually, then we do it once a year and we don't touch it till the next year without, without
Annually
something and as needed. I mean, but then you're back to the as needed again,
Right.
right? I mean, you don't want to get these things, in my opinion, you don't want to get them too prescriptive, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word,
Yeah,
but basically you don't want to say, and I'll do this every 92 days, because then if you don't do it in 92 days, you're in trouble. If you need to do it in 45 days, you really can't. You want to leave some flexibility. And again, in my opinion, I don't,
yeah. I just see it as the code of conduct is in itself really a safety plan, so why wouldn't we?
You could say
Focus
annually or as needed.
Right, if there's an annual requirement for training, then that's great. I didn't know that. Is that every single staff person? Okay, yeah.
So. Should we need to do something?
Well, it's also like saying, it's like going into, you know, if a student is caught with a knife. Without saying it in here, this affects the school, but, and the SRO, but the state criminal procedure law and penal law supersede anything we may have here. It doesn't specifically say that, but it doesn't need to. And I'm trying to make it look like, you know, it doesn't need to say something that's a known fact.
So going over annually is just a practice that's not like written specifically.
No, that is
No, it's-
required by law. It just doesn't say it in here. I thought, because I thought what Chris was saying was that in the emergency response plan, it says by specific dates.
Right, I wasn't looking. for
That's because
specific-
those specific dates are dictated. by law. That's why they're included, but the code of conduct by law is reviewed annually by the Board of Education. There has to be an annual review with staff, students, and there also has to be a plain language copy provided to families as well. So we have like a one sheet back and front that
Yeah.
explains sort of the key points that will be going out to families as well.
Yeah, and I did know that, and that's in there too, like the beginning of the year, plain language. I just didn't know that it was reviewed annually with staff, with all, because that's great. Somewhere else it says should be familiar with, so I just wanted to make sure we're not just handing staff, here's a code of conduct and hoping that they're going to read it. So, you know, if we're doing that, I would like to see it in there. I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't, but,
What, sorry,
but it's okay.
but specifically, you want annually, this to be reviewed annually and, or as
Or
needed,
as, or as needed.
is there a
I don't
reason?
know, right, I just don't know the reason why we wouldn't do that, if we are
I
doing
don't
that,
think
right?
anybody's objecting to put it.
Okay, all right, so when we do, unless there's something else that's major, when we do the motion, we'll just say as corrected or something.
With proposed changes.
I have a question. Is in practice, is it used more than annually and that it's gone over in these trainings in the past?
Yeah, well, so yes, I know that the secondary schools, they have like a refresher, typically coming back from like holiday break or, you know, they try to do that. And or if there's like an uptick in particular behaviors, they will, you know, bring the students together and review it. Again, that's an as needed
As needed,
basis.
right.
We also, and Harry, you might, or Chris, you might remember this, but a couple of years back, we had a particular situation where something wasn't included. I don't know if it was like the e-cigarette thing, but we actually like reviewed it again mid-year to add language specific to something that we saw bubbling up. So
Good.
it's required that we do it annually, but there's nothing that says that we can't, you know, do something more frequently if there is a need and then republish it.
And I was gonna suggest in the alternate, the language might be like as required by law, at least that would be clear that that's the minimum.
Yeah, and so,
At a minimum,
I'm
right.
sure that we will find language that says, but no less frequently than on an annual basis.
Right,
Something like
right, something
that,
like
so we'll include something that fits both of those. Yeah. And we will update that.
Yeah, that's great, but. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Right? I'm just gonna find my way back.
I think,
All right. Just need to find,
and we have nothing in the public.
okay, nothing in public comment.
Unless our
Anything in
chief
public
would like to
comment?
comment.
Started off your career here on a good note. Yeah. First of all, I think the guy with the gavel's a jerk. No way to start. All right, so nothing in public comment. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Do it, no, I think consent. Okay, next is consent. Anything you want pulled, off the list? And Cheryl missed an asterisk,
Which one?
number 20. Just, I mean, I kind of make it a joke, but we normally say anything that's got an asterisk is one missing, so that number 20 that has an asterisk as well. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, comments, questions, concerns?
I would like to say thank you to Ms. Secor for her years of service. I know she will be missed at Alden.
Very
I
good.
second that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Right,
Okay, so we have someone in the audience, for board members. This is Denise Angelucci. She is our new pre-K teacher. So she'll be in addition to the Helen Drive staff. So we welcome her to Millbrook and she'll be officially welcome tomorrow at new teacher orientation.
very cool. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and I did tell her she did not have to stay for the rest of the time.
So it is a lot of fun.
That's not right. I tell you that. You can go.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Motion to adopt the district level safety plan.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Do I have a motion to approve the code of conduct as modified?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, questions from the public?
Does not have any.
Okay. President, Vice President's reports, nothing really for me. Chris, I'm good. All right, Carol.
Okay. So for the board's review, I did include a presentation of data related to pre-K. There was a question a couple of meetings back, just like, hey, how's the program going? So I did provide a very brief overview. One of the metrics that we use in terms of reviewing our pre-K students is the dial 4. So the dial is, it stands for developmental indicators of the assessment of learning, and we administer basically to understand both when the students are entering pre-K and then again when they're entering kindergarten, readiness in specific areas and areas in which each individual student might need some additional support. So the dial 4 measures student skills in motor concepts, language, and social and emotional development and their ability to advocate for oneself. It's a norm reference score that gives percentile ranks. So a student's total score actually can be greater than 100. If you continue looking, it explains what the motor areas are, how that is assessed, the concepts area, the language area, self-help and social emotional development. I would like to note that from this year going forward, we're actually switching to the Bergans inventory of early development. So that is something that actually is both valid and reliable for a pre-assessment, like a screening tool, and then also for progress monitoring. So the dial is typically a screener. It's not really intended for periodic progress monitoring, but the Bergans has a screener element that is aligned to then their progress monitoring tool. So we will have both for this year going forward. And one of the things, if you scroll down to slide number 5, there's some bar charts there. It basically, all we did was we looked at, Millbrook CSD 21, 22, 22, 23, and then those students who, other than Millbrook, right? So students who entered, maybe they went to pre-K elsewhere, or maybe they didn't. But either way, when we look at, how we compare, in all of the areas, we have stronger results from the students that have been here with us for a year, as they're ready to enter kindergarten. And the one area of cons, we will be looking at, our total PK experience to make sure that we are strengthening those learning opportunities for our students. So essentially, we are seeing, even though this is only going to be the 3rd year of this program, we're already starting to see the readiness, indicators for our students are stronger than students who are either educated pre-K elsewhere or maybe not. So, with every year we have an opportunity to reflect, we also make some positive changes. And I know that we've even done a lot with the curriculum this past year and over the summer in preparation for the 3rd year of our pre-K program. So we're pretty excited about the results.
So do we have any, I know it's kind of difficult because of the, not wanting that a specific student identify. But do we have the ability to look at, say, kindergarten and look at kids that didn't attend or didn't attend any program versus our program versus maybe something else?
So this is what it is. This is in terms of readiness. We would be able to then follow those students like more longitudinally over time. This is just the metrics of where they are in terms of readiness to enter kindergarten compared to peers who maybe didn't go here or didn't go in. So yes, we could certainly look at what does that look like after kindergarten. And we can prepare that for, next meeting or whatever. We can look at how it goes. So we have the kindergarten cohort from this past year, and then, at the end of this year, we'll have them through. So.
Yeah, just something that can let us translate this into, first grade and second grade especially, and say, is this really improving the student? But it was good.
I want to comment, I'm so happy to see these results. I think being the one up here who had a child go through pre-K in this program last year, just blown away, so impressed at everything people are, feel super comfortable and ready for kindergarten, amazed. I definitely could not have done that at home on my own, or I think in another private facility. And then is this data useful in increasing pre-K enrollment? I don't know if the appropriate question right now is how is our pre-K enrollment right now, but will this be useful? Is it useful to help that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Amy, Alicia, and I have started working on an actual BK plan brochure. I don't want to call it an advertisement, but it's really sort of an advertisement that we can put in certain strategic places throughout the community. That has very broad overall information, but then also some of the specific information in terms of the benefits of enrolling your child in pre-K, especially now that we have data to support it. It's great to say in general, these are the outcomes that we see for students who, attend pre-K, but we also have some data that's local, our pre-K is working, what I mean? Things are starting to show the benefits. So we're actually developing that, and we look to have that out as we gear up for this coming year to try and attract more of our local.
How many do you have for pre-K?
We're in the low 30s.
Oh, good. There's 3, right? 3.
Yes.
Oh, I had a couple of questions. The 114 versus 101, that's for the
total score, composite.
right, the 22-23
Yep.
school year. I can look, I'm looking at the bars, and it looks like there's less of a difference, right, between the 21-22 school year, between the MCS children that attended MCSD pre-K versus outside, but you don't have it right now on hand. You have those totals.
The exact differences.
Well, just the two numbers for that previous school year. Because it looks like it was a little bit closer
In terms of
together.
concepts, are you asking?
Just the total, so.
So it's
these
like
Oh, no, I don't have the total composite for last year, if that's
Okay.
what you're asking, sorry.
Okay, that's okay, but I mean, just eyeballing it,
Yeah.
right, it does look like there was a bigger difference for the 22-23 school year.
Yes,
Yeah, and then a great sign, if it's not just the difference between outside versus MCSD kids, but from, if you're looking at MCSD pre-K, right, there's an increase from
Yes.
21-22 to 22-23.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
right, or, should we just get smarter kids, or, it's a
Oh.
program, probably more
The 21,
it's
20
programmatic.
21, 22 was our first or second year?
first.
First year
Yeah,
of the
so,
program.
right. most
Still
likely.
going through all that COVID
Yeah,
nonsense. So,
yeah,
If I recall,
no, but
Sorry.
it's great news, right? That you can see that.
but
I was gonna say, I recall the pre-K teachers' presentation, there was a shift in how they were educating the children, so I wonder if that would have something to do with it.
Could very well be. I know that there was a more explicit focus on the early learning standards this year. And I think it's probably a lot of, confidence and also, not to minimize the impact of student attendance, right? Last year we had a lot of COVID absences, so I mean, the continuity of instruction is also really important. When kids are able to be in school, they have a better chance of being able to benefit from instruction too. So I think it's a multitude of factors. We also had a third section this year, right? So that was coordinating another room of students, and we even had, the growth that we did. So I think it's a lot of positives that we're looking at, and I'm hoping only to expand on that.
And then my other question, or it could be a comment, just something to think about. The bar graphs are presenting the raw scores from the dial 4. And I don't think it would be difficult to do if you turn them into the actual percentile scores. That might be a little bit more intuitive, you actually might be able to see, oh, wow, the Millbrook MCSD kids, are they functioning at a 70th percentile versus 60th percentile? I mean, because I don't really know what a 13-point difference, and that's a difference. It's promising, it means something, right? But I think just intuitively a percentile difference. Everybody could understand that, right? If you were to put that out in a newsletter or something, and that's what the dial 4 end product is, right? It's percentile scores. So I don't know if you have any idea whether that 13-point difference, is that like a 10% difference, or, we're just curious.
I don't want to speak
It's
without
okay.
actually looking back at that, but I can certainly provide more information. And that's the information that I know Michelle Quattrone, who's our
Yeah.
psychologist in the building, is working with Alicia and the teachers. So that's where we've identified some areas in which we need to work on holistically, but then also just for individuals.
Thanks.
anybody else? I mean, just seeing these numbers. I just wanted to say to the entire Millbrook Central School District, this was tried years ago to try to get pre-K. Couldn't get it justified, couldn't get the money for it. And in the last 3 years, the district, the parents, everybody has really, put their weight behind it. And this is one of the things I think we should be most proud of. Okay.
Thank you. Not for pre-K, we also have included in the agenda for your review, just Regents assessment data. It's a story over time. We collect this. I know last year, the year before, someone had asked the question, why don't we ever see this? And I'm not sure, because we've always had this, and you can see historically, this is something that gets added to after every single testing administration. So if you scroll through, there's some information there. It's just passing rates. It's the number of students who took the test, the percentage of students who passed, and then the percentage of students who reached mastery. So this is just our local data. We also have information of how that compares, regionally and that kind of thing. So we look at that. We also look at a much more deep indication of what standards are underserved within our curriculum, where do we need to make improvements. So this is just one piece of data that's, an overall summary. But this is not the data necessarily that we use. We dig much deeper than this when we're looking at how we're going to, modify and adjust our instruction. It's really just for information.
Okay.
And then I have the remainder of my report. So on the agenda tonight, you will see that we had some elementary teaching positions, one that was vacated, and so that was filled. We also had the addition of a pre-K teacher due to shuffling within the elementary grades. And we also have a temporary position, you might remember, that is funded from foundation aid set-asides for high impact tutoring. Tomorrow and Thursday are our new teacher orientation days. So we have a jam-packed agenda. Thank you to Dr. Watkins, who put that together, where teachers will have orientation just to the district in general, the different district functioning, business office, technology, how do I, where do I, that kind of thing. But then we actually will get into things like the SEL efforts throughout the district and curriculum and instruction expectations as well. I do want to say kudos to our E&L teachers. This will be the first year since I worked here that we have a full schedule ready for those students based on predictive scores where they will likely score in their NYSESLAT exam. We don't typically get those scores back until right before school starts. So we were able to do some, predictive scheduling. They have a for saying if we need to make any adjustments when we do get the final scores back, we will. But this is really the first year where that is ready to go. It was prepared and implemented throughout our master scheduling process. So kudos to those teachers. I want to say a big thank you to our facilities team. I'm sure you've seen some changes as you walk through the halls of this building. I can't wait for those of you who are going on the board walkthrough. For you to be able to see the high school gymnasium floor. It looks amazing. And also to be able to see some highlights in Elm Drive. We have a full sensory walk. You may remember that there was a sensory path at Elm Drive prior to the 4-letter word that we don't talk about here. But that had to be, ripped up. And now we have a full sensory path back in the building, as well as updates to our sensory room. So that's really exciting. Those students definitely need some sensory breaks. So we're excited about that. As I mentioned, there will be a board walkthrough for visual inspection tomorrow and one again on Friday. We did also have a meeting with our capital planning team on August 22nd. And we are planning to have another one prior to the next time they are back with the Board of Education as a whole. I shared with you already the pre-K and regions data. I did want to say that on September 5th, our conference day for teachers, we will have a convocation in the high school auditorium at 8:30. That will sort of be the kickoff meeting for the district. So if I know Perry, sometimes you're able to make it, but if not, I definitely would like to have representation from the Board of Education. And we have some exciting things that we'll be working on that day as well. There's a little something for everyone in terms of training, so we're happy to be able to offer that. I want to say thank you to our technology team for the rollover to Synergy and also to James Ead specifically for his work as webmaster in the rollover to Final Site, which will be our new website, will be on Final Site. We're working on some competitive mental health grants. As you know, we have the grants that are issued by the state and federal government that we apply for those every year. And we do use that money very responsibly, but We have also been seeking additional support from competitive grant sources. So Samantha and Amy are working on some of that. Amy mentioned last time that she had gone to a grant workshop, so she's been pursuing funding for not just mental health, but in other areas as well. Elliot, in just a few short minutes, will be giving a fund balance management update. Annually, we have to analyze our fund balance. We can only keep a certain portion of that money in an unassigned fund balance, so we have to assign that money and put it into reserve as appropriate. We have ruler implementation that's continuing throughout the buildings, and our counselors and psychologists were just trained this past week in mental health coaching. So that's very helpful for them. They will be getting a refresher in threat assessment as well, behavioral threat assessment this year. And I do want to just thank our PPS staff and our custodians. We had an emergency in the district yesterday, and they were all phenomenal in their reaction and support. So I do just want to say thank you to all of them. And that's all I have.
Questions?
It's not on here, but I was just wondering, two things. How are we set for student for transportation?
So we've been working with them for the last couple of weeks. There were transportation letters that were sent to families. So if there were any issues, we're hoping that would have prompted hey, we need to make this change. If they hadn't already done that. So as far as we know, from the information that we have, we're good to go. All the routes are done, all the routes are ready. So assuming that is exactly where you would like your child picked up and you haven't told us otherwise, we're set to go with those routes.
And the New York City bus nonsense has no effect on us. Like, they're not gonna simply walk out or God knows what.
I spoke with Jen today, the first student, and as of today, all the routes are set. Presently,
She said, yeah, because I talked to her, because she said they were doing the runs
Yeah.
yesterday and today or something, and if anyone else is space, she said, definitely call on like Friday or before if there's any issue with whatever, because don't call on Tuesday.
Right. Yeah.
First thing.
My other question was, and are there? I know Rotary usually works with Root and Briggs or.
Yep,
Or
we have school
school
supplies.
supplies.
Yep, so we're working on that. We're still waiting for the shipment. So whenever we get it, we will make sure that we divvy it up as quickly as possible and notify the families who are coming to get them. But we have the list ready to go. We're just waiting for the actual supplies.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you.
The financials, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Any against? Okay, fund balance.
okay, so, we would like to have the formal plan together today. Our audit actually just concluded today, so, we're still tying out some loose ends, and I'll say like, thousands of dollars in the grand scheme of 30+ million, so we're not too far. What I can share with the board is, and again, I'll do a very brief overview for those that may not be familiar. We are only allowed by law to carry 4% of our fund balance as unassigned. So, anything beyond 4% of our proposed or our current year 22-23 budget or 23-24 budget of $33,999,370, we're allowed to carry 4% of that unassigned. Anything beyond that has to go into some sort of assigned or allocated fund balance or fund. Sorry. Reserve. Thank you. It's been a long day.
And as an example, that maintenance one that we set up.
Correct. So the maintenance reserve, we funded with $100,000. The way that we did it, when we structured it, means we have to pay it back within 2 years. So That's a very good example. I can't use last year's fund balance to pay back that reserve that we expended last year, but we can use this year's fund balance to pay back that reserve from last year. So it's just a logistical thing. There will be a 23-24 PO that actually pays back that reserve fund to replenish it, and we do have the money to fully replenish it. That reserve right now sits at $6,491. We'll be able to fully replenish the 93,000 and change to bring it back to 100 should we need it in the future. But we do have a number of reserve funds. We have tax certiorari reserve, and that is for people that challenge their taxes. I pay $20,000 a year in taxes and I should only pay 10. And if we get a judgment that says they should only pay 10, we have to give them back the 10 that the judge says we owe them. So we have a reserve fund to cover those kind of unanticipated expenses. We also have an unemployment reserve. We have reserves for both ERS and CRS for our certificated staff. We have our capital reserve and an insurance reserve, in addition to repair reserve. The very, very brief version of the story, and again, I will give you a memo with all the numbers broken out once they're finalized. As we presently sit, we're just over $1.2 million beyond the 4% max of fund balance that we're allowed to carry. So, while the economy did a lot of interesting things last year and interest rates were through the roof, which was not good for us from a purchasing perspective, it actually helped us because all of these funds, or many of these funds, sit in investment yielding vehicles. So our capital reserve, which we had put about 8.8 million into, is currently sitting at $9.1 million. So thank you to the market for giving us something. Right now, the cap reserve is at $9,146,839. So what I'm going to propose to the board is essentially to fully fund the cap reserve to bring us to the $10 million cap that the voters authorized a few years ago. That's going to be really helpful in our upcoming discussions about what to do, when to do, and how to structure our proposed bonded project or projects. So that proposed allocation will be $853,161. So out of the 1.2 or the 1.2 million, we're going to take just over 850 of it, 850,000 and put it to the cap reserve if the board supports that, and that leaves us with a balance of around $440,000. And what I'd like to do is allocate that money among all of the remaining reserves to the legal limitations that we're allowed to, and what's considered responsible industry standards. So there's certain structured guidelines for how much you should have in the repair reserve. The tax certiorari reserve, for example, we have 9 outstanding judgments for this current year alone. So we look at what the possible exposure is of those judgments if they all come through, and see if we have enough right now to cover it. And if we don't, there's some calculations involved in that process as well. But I'll have that collateral before we make that recommendation. But I'd like to spread out the remaining 400,000 between the TRS and the ERS reserves for retirement expenses, which are pretty big. Whatever retirement we get, the number goes up significantly, and the tax cert reserve, and that should round out the 1.2 million.
And just to be clear, if we wanted to take that other 400X million or $400,000 and put it into unreserved, that would have to go like bumping that beyond 10 million. We would have to take that to the voters before we can do that.
I'll answer the question. I think I'm hearing you. So can we go beyond the 10 million authorization cap reserve? So we can, if the voters authorize it. We can also establish a secondary reserve. Capital reserves are time bound by 10 years. So sometimes some districts will have multiple cap reserves that start on different years, so that as projects evolve, you can allocate money and we can pull it. I'm going to take 2 million from this reserve and 1 million from this reserve and put 3 million towards that project. So we can also specifically tag a cap reserve. So we could do a capital reserve that's intended for something a little bit more specific if we felt that need. And we can explore that in our May vote or in parallel to a project.
It probably makes more sense to use that money because retirements are gonna continue to be, escalating issue. Insurance or retirement, the insurance one.
Just as a point of information, at the close of last year, we were $405,000 away from fully funding our TRS. So we could very easily max out at least one or make a dent in both of those retirement reserves to cushion us from further future expenses.
Comments, questions? We need to vote on something, we need numbers.
Right, so what I'll do is I'll put together a memo to the board that'll just list out very, very similar to the way I just said it, you know, the existing funds. I'll give you where they are, and then what the proposed increases would be based on the 1.2, once we tighten up that number. The only thing we're really waiting for is after the audit closes, for example, we had a $50,000 PO last year that was invoiced 41,000 at the end of June. Then we get the year-end invoice that brings it up another 9,000 and another 15,000. So that one PO is gonna cost us 15 grand more than we thought. So that that could come out of that $1.2 million balance. It's a minor dent, but in order to give you a specific number to vote on, we want to have that type.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ellie. All right, what else do we have here? What's that?
Future agenda.
Oh, we put it. You guys know new staff or something?
Yeah, so at the September 12th board meeting, we will have a reception for our new staff where we'll
Okay.
welcome all new members, interest and questions.
Okay. And then one of the things that we need to, we sort of, I don't know if we finalized the decision, but we're talking about, you know, moving that vote on the capital project to May, you know, the standard calendar. I think we need it at some point in the not too distant future, look at that new timeline,
Do that.
all right?
So we would do with all in one vote in May. So
Yeah. Right, I mean, did anybody have, is everybody cool with that?
I'd rather wait and get it right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Next is the executive session. Do I have well, actually, before I do that, we're gonna probably leave to go to executive session. Just know for anybody that's on the phone, listening in, that we may come back with actions to be taken based on the discussions in executive session. With that, we have a motion to go to executive session. Do you have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any against? All right, very good. 5 minutes? Everybody, are you okay to be done?
Anyone need 5 minutes?
You need 5 minutes? No? All right, cool.
Can't answer that, it's like, how long